Very few of us know about the wars fought in the shadows.
It's time.
Nick Fury's 6-episode masterpiece has arrived.
This is a ticking time bomb.
And it was you who lit the match.
This invasion is real. And I'm the last person standing between them and what they really want.
Secret Invasion, now streaming only on Disney+.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. Marvel just dropped a brand new Secret Invasion Episode 2 trailer video. There was also some footage from further episodes beyond too, so I'll try to point that out when we get to it. I'm doing videos for all the episodes, just like the other Marvel Disney Plus series, and we're doing a giveaway for Disney Plus memberships. All you have to do to enter is be a subscriber and just leave your favorite Easter egg so far in the series. Just starting at the beginning of the trailer, so they start with voiceover from Sonya Falsworth, Union Jack 2, if you want to think about it in comic book terms. Like, there's the first version and the second version of the character to take the name. She's meant to be the daughter of the original Union Jack character. She was clowning on Nick Fury a little bit in episode 1 because he'd been gone for so long. She was trying to tell him that he basically lost his edge. But while she was doing that, she was referencing their history together, working together as spies during the Cold War era, and their history in the comics, like Union Jack's history with Nick Fury in the Howling Commando comics. They moved the timeline when they started doing the MCU movies because they didn't start till Iron Man 1 in 2008, so everybody was born a little bit later in the timeline. In the comics, Nick Fury actually fought in World War II with the Howling Commandos in the original Captain America. They did have a Union Jack, though, in the Captain America First Avenger movie. The war in the shadows that she's talking about is what's been happening since Avengers Endgame that Nick Fury has not been around for. Although I think part of the idea is that he kind of knows what's been going on, but he's mostly been on his space station, so for the most part, all the different people he's encountering, even Rhodey, for example, think that he has absolutely no idea what's going on. I'll talk more about Rhodey in a second too, because there's definitely something sus with Rhodey. Definitely think that he's going to wind up being a Skrull. There'll be a couple more big reveals throughout the series about big Avengers characters, big MCU characters that have been Skrulls for a long time. Rhodey just happens to be one of the biggest theories right now. But the funny thing is while he's walking through the woods and they're having this Sonya Falsworth voiceover from a new scene, you actually see them cut a weird edit with footage of her talking in a completely different sentence, like her lip flaps do not match the voiceover. The footage of her is from their conversation in episode 1, so it was a completely different conversation that they were having, unless it was some sort of deleted scene. One of the weird things about Marvel trailers is that some of them are pretty cool, but usually you could probably find a fan trailer of some fake Marvel movie out there that's way better than their real trailers. Normally you'd think that a big studio with an infinite amount of money could come up with a better version of a trailer than a fan could. I don't know why they cut the trailer like that unless she was talking to him in some kind of spoilery scene. He's already gotten his eye patch back, so he's been to that grave site, like he's pulled all of his stuff out of his grave. Part of the idea, I think, is that he wanted the world to believe that he died during the final battle in Avengers Endgame, and he just used the opportunity to check out. That makes me wonder if Sonya Falsworth, a lot of the other intelligence communities like MI6, people around the world, knew that Talos was really pretending to be Nick Fury and his wife was pretending to be Maria Hill. You have to imagine, though, the way that Talos explained all the Skrulls and how he got kicked off the council is that the Skrulls knew that he was doing that. Which means Gravik knew that he was doing that, which means Gravik's group knew that he was doing that, and because they've been infiltrating all these other different organizations around the world, it means that the other organizations probably found out too. One of the reasons why I think they're giving him the eye patch back is just because it's so iconic. Like, it is weird seeing Nick Fury without his eye patch on, and they wanted him to feel like he was on the outs in episode 1, and when he puts the eye patch back on, it's like, yeah, I'm getting back in it. Where he basically says that he's getting back in the saddle. One of the other interesting details is that when he's opening the grave here of his stuff, it actually looks like a star chart, so I think it's just a reference to his history with the Skrulls. Speaking of which, you do kind of wonder if he's benefited from working with the Skrulls and getting access to their technology since the 90s. One thing they don't make very clear is that even though Nick Fury worked with S.H.I.E.L.D. for a long time, you have like all these other people, this big government organization, all this government funding that happened for years. It sounds like he didn't let the US government in on his relationship with the Skrulls, like he had this relationship with them that was completely separate from what he was doing with S.H.I.E.L.D. Otherwise, you probably would have seen way more Skrulls running around back in the 90s and the early 2000s. I think the way they explained this during episode 1 is that at least up to present day before Secret Invasion, there were a limited number of Skrulls running around on planet Earth, and they knew who all of them were until Secret Invasion. There's a couple scenes from episode 1, everybody's still wondering about Maria Hill. It is possible that her death is a fake out, like there's life model decoy if we're talking about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. references with Coulson faking out his death, although technically he did die and then come back to life. By the very end of the series, they did do a big comic book Easter egg. He did become a life model decoy version of himself, sort of like a backup version of Coulson. There's also the idea that the series is supposed to feel like it's in the same tone as the Winter Soldier movie, and during that, Nick Fury faked his death. So do not be surprised if Maria Hill winds up showing up before the end of the series again. Also, I think some people spotted her on the IMDb for the Marvels movie, so it is possible she always comes back in future Marvel projects. I think the way they ended episode 1 with her just bleeding out there in the square and the camera panning out slowly, they wanted to show you the body like, oh, see, it's a body in a comic book movie. If you don't see the body, that means that they're still alive. So we're going to show you the body so you definitely think that she's dead. But it's only episode 1, so we'll see if they truly did wind up Ned Starking her. Everybody feeling bad for her and Sif now, like characters that used to be super popular that everybody's excited to see come back, and then they just quickly kill off without any big ceremony. Just remember what happened with Coulson, just remember what happened with Nick Fury's death fake out. Then you see Sonya Falsworth talking to Nick Fury at his gravesite. Fake gravesite, we should say. And because of the events of episode 1, we can say this scene here is confirmation that Gaia is finding Gravik, who's replaced hundreds and hundreds of people. Like there's a giant warehouse of what look like really powerful, important figures around the world that they replaced. Sonya Falsworth's voiceover says it's a ticking time bomb kind of situation as Gaia's freaking out. That just plays into the whole idea of them stealing bombs and trying to create this mutually assured destruction scenario, this war between Russia and the United States. They're also trying to do that with the rest of the world nations too eventually. That's the idea, like Russia and the United States would fire their nukes at each other and it would trigger this chain reaction that would basically destroy pretty much all the humans on the planet, allowing the Skrulls to sort of fly in and just move in the ashes. It'd be kind of like a version of Avengers Infinity War with the snap and what happened during the blip, that 5-year time jump, with a bunch of people just moving in to old people's houses. They had a joke about that during Spider-Man Far From Home. Aunt May got blipped back after Avengers Endgame after the Hulk snap in their apartment from Captain America Civil War, but in the 5-year time jump, another family had just moved in because nobody was living there. So you have to imagine all the Skrulls just hoping that the humans kill each other off and they're just going to move into everybody else's places. When Gaia tells Nick Fury, it's you who lit the match, that's just a reference to that 30-year plan, the promise that Nick Fury and Captain Marvel made to the Skrulls about finding them a new home. A lot of people have problems with this, and you're not totally wrong. Like, what was going on in the 90s and the early 2000s that Nick Fury couldn't go find them another planet? It's a very big universe. For those of you wondering how they were going to do that without a bunch of spaceships, the idea is that they had Mar-Vell's original spaceship at the end of the first Captain Marvel movie. They were going to use that to take the Skrulls to a new planet eventually. Hopefully, during one of the future episodes, they'll explain what happened during the early 2000s that prevented that. If it had been later in the timeline, you could make the excuse that the events of the first Avengers movie, second Avengers movie, Avengers Infinity War were happening, but before that, they don't have a lot of excuses. This scene seems like Gravik's group of Skrulls stealing another device. Not sure what's in the case, make all the Pulp Fiction jokes that you want. Show me what's in the case. Because it's being chilled, it could either be a biological agent or just part of the device that they're creating here in this abandoned power plant. Little more footage from the end of episode 1 with the explosion and that Russian celebration. This scene looks like Nick Fury walking into one of those old abandoned power plants. The architecture seems similar to the power plant that they were in episode 1. Because Gravik pretended to be Nick Fury and killed Maria Hill in episode 1, it seems like that will continue. Like, he'll continue to pretend to be Nick Fury because it looks like he's firing on the US president's convoy here. That's probably why in the other trailers you see the US agents pulling their guns on Nick Fury because they think that he tried to kill the president, even though it was technically Gravik pretending to be him. This is another scene of Gravik looking at some device that they're creating in that abandoned power plant base. This scene is of Olivia Colman and Sonya Falsworth getting ready to interrogate what seems like a Skrull pretending to be a human, and she looks like she's going full Val on her, like really evil, sinister looking, even though she's technically meant to be on the good side. They want to make her seem like a darker, edgier Val type of character who will do anything to protect the UK. During episode 1, Talos talked about trying to prevent them from killing a bunch of Skrulls because Sonya Falsworth was going to use this excuse to kill pretty much all the Skrulls that they came across on planet Earth, even the ones who weren't part of Gravik's group, just like the normal ones trying to live their lives peacefully. Then there's a scene of Rhodey in the president's convoy, and it's part of that big scene where you see a version of Nick Fury, really it's like a Skrull pretending to be Nick Fury, firing on the president's convoy, and it seems like Rhodey is in that convoy while that happens. One of the reasons why he might subject himself to something like that, he could be riding in a completely different car, or it could be because Skrulls' bodies are so much more resilient than humans, he could soak the damage from a blast like that. So it just seems like more evidence that he will wind up being a Skrull. A lot of people also wondering why he wasn't limping in episode 1 too, because he does wear that special device you saw in Avengers Endgame in the Avengers New Base. He does have special Stark tech that helps him walk a little more normally without needing a bunch of tech. But I think part of the idea is they want you to question everyone's identity if they're acting very differently than they were in previous movies. Like, Rhodey seems kind of weird. He wasn't acting this way during Avengers Endgame, or even all the Marvel movies before Thanos showed up in Avengers Infinity War. Then they end with a couple new scenes of Nick Fury just staring at camera with his traditional eye patch on, like, I'm back. If you spotted any other Easter eggs or references in the trailer footage that I didn't talk about in the video, just write them below in the comments. My full episode 2 video will post next week after they release it. Remember, there's 6 episodes total, so I think within the next couple of episodes, we will find out about a couple of MCU characters that have been Skrulls this whole time. But I am expecting them to hold a couple of the big big Skrull reveals till the final episode. It definitely seems like they're going to try and kill off the US president. Everyone post all your theories in the comments below, and I'll name a new giveaway winner in my next big Marvel video. Everyone click here for my full Secret Invasion Episode 1 video, and click here for my brand new Spider-Man 4 video. Thank you so much for watching, everyone stay safe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.